Well, good evening, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on Saturday night talking sim. Those are joining me on Instagram. Actually, not Instagram tonight. Unfortunately, it's going to be LinkedIn. Yep, LinkedIn, TikTok, and also on YouTube. LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube, and also Facebook. Yes, and also Facebook as well. So therefore, you can join me on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I tend to try that once in a while as well. I want to thank those who are joining me on TikTok. Thank you very much. Jay Glazer, you Richard, yes, Bertrand, what's up? What can I say? The truth of tonight is what is true emancipation and independence? A discussion which we'll be having tonight. But before we go any further, tomorrow night I'm going to be having at 9 o'clock. I'm going to be having Mr. Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly, we're going to continue that series of civics, and it's going to be civics and culture, culture and civics. And I think it's really appropriate time in light of independence as well and emancipation era. So it's going to be civics and culture, culture and civics, and that's going to be 9 p.m. tomorrow night with Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly, the ambassador, the I call him the NHS ambassador that deals with aspect of diabetes, and he's that advocate for. But he's a very interesting person. So that's going to be tomorrow night, the third of the eighth at 9 p.m. That's on YouTube. Of course, you're gonna have the overflow as well on TikTok as well, and either between Instagram, but definitely on Facebook. So thank you so much for joining tonight. And tonight I'm going to be having, all being well, touch wood, I'm going to have former Assistant Commissioner of Police, Miss Novelette Grant. Going to look at the whole aspect of emancipation and independence, a perspective. I say a perspective. And I'm also going to be having as well Mr. Rudi Page. Rudi Page is supposed to be coming on tonight as well. If you don't know Rudi Page, if you remember the whole thing with Dyken Dreidner, Rudi Page was one of the guy that coined the word black and dark and lovely hours. Rudi will correct it. He's an award-winning leadership and management consultant based in the UK, known for his significant work connecting the Caribbean diaspora, especially the Jamaican community, with international development. And of course, Miss former acting commissioner of police, Miss Novelette Grant. Novelette Grant is a distinguished retired deputy commissioner of police in the Jamaica Constable Force, JCF, and served as acting commissioner of police in 2017. Her career in law enforcement spanned over 36 years, marked by trailblazing accomplishment and a steadfast commitment to reform, community engagement, and professionalism. Yes, so that's supposed to be a very interesting discussion. And of course, I always like the level of interaction from persons. I want to thank you so much for joining, Belinda. Thank you so much for coming on. Well, what can I say? I'm not going to say what tonight is, because of the terminologies of certain words, which is because it's on TikTok. But I always ask you what you are, what you are, and I am. Yep, that's it. That's what you are. That's what I am. Yep. that's very interesting thing. Well, listen. This is 2025, and when we talk about immigration, we talk about emancipation, and we talk about independence. That's a very crucial period at this time. And Bob Marley said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind." Now I'm not going to play that because of the whole copyright factor in regards to it, so definitely won't play it. But it was on August 1st, 1838, when slavery was abolished in Jamaica and Guyana as well. Yep. The official date that marked abolition of slaves working on the plantation. This abolishment affected a few other Caribbean countries, namely Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados. For the record, as they say, Guyana is in South America. Bahamas celebrate emancipation, but the first of Monday, August 4th of 8. And it's a very interesting period because one of the things that I was talking about when it come on to emancipation, we was talking about what does emancipation means. It has something which has profoundly shaped the cultural identity and pride, and especially of Jamaica, by serving as both a mark of historical liberation and a living symbol of resilience, creativity, and unity. And the impact can be seen in connecting countries as well. I tend to try to interlink it with the whole aspect of independence. Today there was the independence service in the UK, and August the 6th will be Independence Day, and more than likely they might have the grand gala, the feel good factor. I think maybe tomorrow, according to some sources, they may be called for an election. So a lot of things are happening this time. And I link all of these things when it come on to liberation and emancipation. And I was speaking with someone today, and they said that they sometimes can't speak up on issues. They can't speak up on things which are very crucial for them in Jamaica, because a lot of persons are sort of indirectly gagged. I wouldn't say they're gagged, but they're indirectly can't speak concerning. It depends on their employment. And one of the things is that the government is the largest employer in Jamaica. And a lot of people can't speak up. And you talk about, is that emancipation? Are people free to a certain extent? Is there independence? And are we independent as well? I always say that the process of independence is when you have a full independence, like you become a republic, whereby you are no more swearing allegiance to the king. Either say the queen, well, the king. No more swearing allegiance, whereby there's no more a governor general. Someone asked me today, what is the purpose of the governor general? And I said the governor general uh is and I couldn't actually find out what was the purpose of the governor general, except to be a symbol or representation of the the king of England. But one of the things though of the king of England, of King Charles and Prince Charles, and I used the word Prince Charles before, in charge of the Prince's Trust. He was very active and he was up and down and doing things. But somehow you're not hearing that the Governor General is doing that. The Governor General is more someone just comes out, unless there's something else that is that I don't know, and just break bread, you know, and do the Lord's Supper or something like that. Uh, and 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 I find that very interesting. So therefore, I consider independence or full independence. That's going to be when there's a republic, when Jamaica has cut and severed the ties with the United Kingdom, which of where I'm at, where the process of even the Privy Council and the Caribbean Court of Justice will no more be an issue, but there will be a Caribbean Court of Justice. So you can't say you're removing the king as the head of England, head of the country, and then at the same time you're retaining his courts. So there are many different factors there at the same time. So, and I'm gonna see if I can have Mr. Mr. Rudi Page caught you there. I thought you were a statue. Yeah, it was one side, just looking on there. Good afternoon, Rudi. How are you? Welcome.
Good day, Sylvan. I was reading as usual. You know I'm always reading.
Yes, 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 yes.
It's great
Welcome.
to see you. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you for coming on. We say let's just have a discussion and a perspective. Because you and the one of the interesting things though, Rudi, is that when sometimes people go online and they're talking, they coin their words and they choose their words. But sometimes when we are talking, I always say, man, that conversation should be have tape. We should have taped that conversation. That is more powerful than a live discussion.
Indeed, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed.
I did say something, Rudi. Just a background. I don't know if I missed it up, but you're with Dykes and Dryden. You're the one that coined that term. What is that term that you coined again?
Afro hair and beauty.
Afro hair and beauty. I was saying dark and lovely. Afro
Yeah,
hair and
yeah, yeah. That was a brand. That was in fact, back in the old days,
yes,
that was a big brand in terms of hair relaxer brand.
yes.
most women, in terms of the consumers, they bought that box, Dark and Lovely, of hair relaxer.
And I presume at that time you had hair for using
Yes,
that.
flowing locks. Can you believe it? 40, as you say that though, Silvan. So next year I will be celebrating 45 years ago when I first stepped into Dyke and Dryden. Can you believe it? Young man like me.
Wow, wow, wow. It's unfortunate that I do not have the picture to. There's a picture which we had. But I don't want to say that because I had also some hair at some point in the past, you know.
Okay. I was going to say I can go and find it and put it up as a backdrop if you wish later.
Yeah, I'll find it in the course of the time.
I
But
think I
yeah,
will do.
mm,
I think I will do.
yeah. But listen, emancipation /
Yeah.
independence.
Mhm.
What's your perspective as to emancipation, the whole essence of Emancipation Day?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
I,
What's your
I
perspective?
think for me personally, as somebody who's interested in history and culture and respect for those who sacrificed before us or for us, and I think it's really important because if you and you mentioned about 1838
Mm,
in terms of emancipation, but think of the 200 years of struggle and sacrifice that people made to achieve emancipation or make their
yeah,
contribution. It's really important that for our own cultural esteem and for the successive generations, so we know that we're always on a generational mission.
yes,
And I think it's important to have these important marks of the past and actually
mm,
understanding what people did for us to be where we are today.
yeah,
And a lot of people are interested in doing that. So I'm very much with the people who realize that is important for us as a group of people to understand where we came from and what others did to get us to where we are, and also indicate to us where we need to get to as well. So really important, these timelines. And our generation, and we're probably the first generation, and our children and grandchildren will follow the generations after, where we can actually identify a period in time in our past.
yeah,
We understand what was done
mm,
at that time and what people were doing at that time that contribute to where we are today. So, Sylvan, just to quickly give an example of what I mean by that,
mm,
especially for us in the UK, we've got a kind of unique role in the 1948 is the Windrush
yeah,
ship, right? It describes an era when 500,000 at least Caribbean people came to this country with their descendants between 1948 and 1971,
mm,
and historically, the period of time and recognizing the contribution that we made, particularly to British society, was
yeah,
that narrative did not include our voice. Whereas
mm,
now it does. We hear the stories, we get the understanding. So what was the contribution? And we also know what our parents and grandparents did before that, because by thinking about emancipation, we take the 1948, the Windrush, as a midpoint. So
yes,
if you go back 100 years to 1848 and you study what, and let's just use Jamaica as an example, and of course this is across the English speaking Caribbean, what the people were doing at that time. So they easily, Silborn, will be
mm,
our great grandparents, great great grandparents. If you go back 100 years, our great great grandparents, what were they doing? They were setting up free towns. They were working out, having come through emancipation,
yes,
how they then were going to lead independent, respectful, and be treated with respect and
Yes.
build communities. And of course, that's the free towns.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
well,
on. Mhm.
well, thanks for that. I want to take this opportunity and I want to bring in Miss Novelette Grant, and I'm gonna bring in Miss Novelette Grant here now. But before I do that, let me do something different. I should have done this with you, but let me do this with her, and set the stage properly. Good afternoon, Miss
Hi,
Grant.
how are you?
Not bad. I see. I had to do the music for you. You know, I didn't do it for Rudy, but I did it for you. You know?
Novelette, Novelette.
Thank you very much. Rudy, I don't know what he has against you.
That's what I was going to say,
I
Novelette,
think you
because
need to investigate that.
please,
Okay.
no mention, nothing. Just
You know, we can't practice discrimination,
exactly.
in reverse, because although women, we know that discrimination against women
Yeah,
exists, but
yeah,
neither should we practice it against men.
absolutely, absolutely.
Uh,
And you see
All right.
my mother in the background there. That's my mother.
Okay,
the
there
mother
you
in
go.
the background.
That's my
Awesome,
mother.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Awesome, nice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, thanks for joining having Miss Novelette Grant. Novelette Grant is a distinguished retired deputy commissioner of police in Jamaica Constabulary Force and served as acting commissioner of police in 2017. Her career in law enforcement spanned over 36 years, marked by trailblazing accomplishments and a steadfast commitment to reform, community engagement, and professionalism. Hence the reason why I had to start the show properly and give her a good intro so I get myself covered. All right, Rosalie?
No need to have him arrested, Novelette.
Have no powers in England. I'm none.
I'm sure you can talk to somebody.
But I do know people.
Exactly. And I want to be in the good books. When I come to Jamaica, I can just give you
Yeah,
a buzz, you know what I mean?
I'll give you his
Of
flight
course you
numbers.
can.
Novelette, I'll give you his flight numbers next time.
Please do. Red carpet and all of that.
Red carpet. Well, no, but listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and Rudy as well. I wanted to straddle the different continents, Europe and Jamaica, and the whole discussion regarding where we are now in emancipation slash independence. And I wanted to get different perspective. What's your perspective? Just throw that one out. What's your perspective on emancipation? What do you think people see that as today?
That's a tricky question. Unfortunately for a lot of people, it's a holiday. One of the things that I recognize as a youngster coming up was the insufficient knowledge of history that many of us grew up with. And I remember, when I was in high school, when I went on to high school, my English teacher I was one of her, let me say, her students that she revered for doing well in her class. And then she asked me what's my favorite subject, because she expected me to say still English. I loved English, obviously. I love reading. I'm a bookworm until this day. But I said to her, history. And she looked disappointed. And I remember, could have been about 15-ish or so. I remember saying to her that the reason I loved history was it helped me to understand why we are where we are today. So it's that reasoning that I believe or that foundation that I believe is the reason behind some of the decisions or indecisions of people. Because when you are only dealing with what you know of now, I have no real idea for how you got to where you are. Your reasoning is going to be devoid of some information that could help you to make better and more informed decisions. So remember, we had stopped celebrating or recognizing emancipation until recently, once independence came, and so on.
Mm.
And so, what happened, you know, post emancipation? How did that set the foundation for what would become independent Jamaica? What were the systems the legacy systems that we had? What were the things that we needed to address as a collective? And then if you know, the little history that some of us were exposed to in the classroom, where they talk about, you know, how we got to universal adult suffrage and so on.
Yeah.
And then to move us into independence again, there are lots of developments within the social system around the whole business of people getting access to resources, the
Yes.
responsiveness or non-responsive state that we had. And then when we got into into the limited self-government and the political parties form, what did they do to adequately prepare the society to understand if we're going to move into now being responsible for ourselves politically? What responsibilities did that come with, and what would it mean for us economically? So
Yes.
I think those are still relevant questions today, because I remember saying to somebody some years ago that if you look at the upheaval of 1938, that really pushed us towards independence in a
Yes.
way. It wasn't just what was happening here. We were in the middle of Europe and the rest of the world in conflict, and
Mm.
that had a bearing as to how states got independence down the road. And so, in a way, the very social justice that people were clamoring for in 1938 and onward, those claims are still alive and well, in my humble opinion,
Yes.
because people are not getting from the state what their grandparents wanted. We have some of it, obviously, but not to the degree that would reduce the conflict and the turmoil and the kind of behaviors that we see. So the question for me is, what were the values that we were supposed to adopt and live by as an independent country
Yes.
once, you know, in 1962? And I would suggest that, you know, there was a kind of framework to tell us some of the values and the behaviors and the beliefs that we should embrace, that we can find embedded in or encoded then in our national anthem, in our national pledge, even the
Yes.
national song for school. But
Yes.
those are treated, those ideas that are encoded in those instruments, if I could call them that, we just pluck them out and use them as ceremonial things. When I was going to school, I
Yes.
learned them by rote, because I went to school in independent Jamaica. I don't know God Save the King. I know
Yes.
the current national anthem.
Yes.
But nobody explained these things. You just studied it by rote, and then once that was done as an event, that's it. But these are supposed to be things that we live by. What does it mean to treat each other with respect? What does loyalty to country mean? So there are lots of things that I think that should have been part of the foundation of
Yes.
building a nation where we could rise together collectively and tackle the problems that we have in a way that made sense. I don't think we laid that foundation as, you know, as we have. Because when you look at the society, gentlemen, you know, just borrowing something that I learned as a IEP peace ambassador, is that they tell you that if you want a peaceful society, there are certain things that you have to look at. You have to look at the structure of the society.
Yes.
All the things that you can look at. The attitudes are the bedrock, are the foundation, because that is where your values, your beliefs, your behaviors, that is what informs them, and that is what you will see come out in your institution, whether or not you're going to have good governance, because it depends on how we see things like setting up our business environment, how we see things like accountability, how we see things like a well-functioning government, how we see the acceptance of the rights of others, how we see, developing high levels of human capital. So if your bedrock, if your foundation has some gaps there, then your population becomes easily manipulated or disengaged, because what you are actually giving people, they are almost like just symbolism then.
Symbolism.
Right, yeah. So it becomes very difficult for people to say what, in any cohesive and coherent way. What does an independent Jamaica look like? What does emancipation really means?
Well, that's very. Oh, I'm getting an echo. Can you hear?
I'm hearing you clearly. No echo from here.
Yeah.
We are good.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting what you set out there. And Rudi, can I just ask you for your perspective? But before I go there, I just have to point out that one of your greatest fan, Mr. Neville Ying,
Professor, please.
Professor Neville Ying said you need to add that Novelette is an outstanding graduate of the Strategic Human Resource Management Master Degree Program at UA. So
and he is my most distinguished professor. I learn a lot from him.
Well, we know Neville from years, isn't it, Rudi?
Yes.
From here.
Yes.
Rudi, what's welcome, Neville. I sent him my invite and said I'd love to get his perspective. Yes, Silver.
Yeah.
Rudi, what's your take on?
In fact, Novelette made some great points actually, in terms of the type of work that I do, and of course, as I was saying just before Novelette came on, about the importance of the marker in history of emancipation. You have to think of around that time. The people had come off the plantations, the free towns. They had an understanding of what it meant to, take your own destiny into your hands and what that really meant. And so that for me is an important marker in time, as Novelette was talking about, the foundations and the structures, and these can always be revisited. That's the great thing about where we are today. And we can relearn some of these things. And I think you made a great point also, Novelette, particularly around 1938, you're talking the sugar riots. And at the time, there was a West Indian commission that was sent down from England as it related to that. And they said, yes, the people should be paid more, which of course the ruling structures were not interested in that at all, because for generations that's not something that they were particularly interested in. But for me, that particular commission at the time, they in their report they said that they didn't think Jamaica should be independent because the people hadn't understood the mysteries of leadership. That's always been in my mind from that particular commission. So again, some of the values and some of the structures that need to be looked at again, be revived or revisited, because they are there. The foundations are there, exactly as you said, as you were growing up. Again, a generation before had thought about the importance of the national anthem, had thought about, as I said, about building up neighborhoods and towns and schools. All those things were built up from a very difficult time. And then, of course, that has been built on over time. So I'm still positive that we can always go back and relearn. So from the 21st century, so like us now, we recognize the Windrush era, 1948. And I'm always saying to people, 1948 was only 3 generations after Paul Bogle.
Precisely.
It's only 100 years after emancipation. But we're also saying to our young people, we now need to be thinking about 2048, because 2048 may sound a long way away, but it's only 1 generation away from where we are now. So, and all of that will be built on the 100 and the 200 years before. The lessons and the values, the visions are all there. So we can go back and relearn.
The whole essence of emancipation, and at this time now, there's a new generation of people, new generation that is saying the Pan-Africanist movement, the getting rid of the King of England as the head of state. People are actually looking away, moving forward. The political dimension in Jamaica, we won't get into that because that's another story all by itself. But what do you think people, young people, see emancipation as in a practical way today, Novelette? Especially, let's deal with Jamaica. You're on the ground in Jamaica. You're in a lot of societal aspect there. What do you see young Jamaicans see emancipation as?
Okay, let's just stick with the king and
Yeah.
whether we are with the head of state.
You want to stick with the king? You want to stick with the king?
No. I'm saying
I'm just winding it.
No. You know what I mean. Just for discussion purposes. I know. But in real life, everyday life, the king really doesn't play a role here. It's just again, it's a symbolic role. But what people need to recognize? I go back to this. What were the structures and institutions that we inherited from that colonial past that is still that the king is embedded in terms of how the state relate to us as citizens, and whether or not those institutions are set up to be responsive to current 21st century need and the need of people. So those are things to think about. When we talk about things like crown land or government land, who is the crown and who is the government? And how did we end up as an independent country with so many people having to squat on lands, right? And so access to land. I grew up hearing about land reform, but you still had people while that was being said who had to go and squat, and then we end up with what I would call irregular communities. Irregular mean that they are not properly laid out. They are basically in a way opaque because of how the infrastructure situation developed. It's higgly-piggly. So they lack social services and all of those things. We carry issues. If you look, we talk about having an education system. No, I'm not a trained teacher. I can only comment based on what I pick up. But is it really a system, or is it a collection of schools run by different school boards with different chairmen of these boards, and with the Ministry of Education sitting on top of something that really is not responsive to the needs of the kind of education and knowledge and skills that our people need, the kind of human capital development that I need, because something has to be wrong if we keep failing in terms of how we prepare people for the world of work, how we educate, because this is more than just skills now. When you look about what education means, education is supposed to prepare you for life, to give you that broad-based set of skills and knowledge for you to be able to come out and function in a society. So, we keep having a kind of from what I am observing, I stand to be corrected, but based on my interaction with the youth and with parents and community members, I kind of get that we are kind of disjointed in that area, because we are holding on to old ideas and old structures that are not necessarily as responsive and can pivot as quickly as it should to current needs. I could be wrong. So we have to then ask ourselves, who prepared citizens, since independence properly for their responsibility? This thing that the national anthem talks about, teach us true respect for all. And teach us and still response to duties called. What does that mean? We sing it, we mouth it. What does it really mean? What kind of education do we give to people leaving the school system each year to come out and make meaningful change? It's more than just getting a job. Everybody born in Jamaica is a human being first and foremost. Secondly, a citizen. And out of those two things, you end up with a job in the society. That is, whether you are the governor general or the guy who sweep the street, it is a job. That's a job. But what does that do? You understand how that job contribute to the overall welfare of the whole human race, right? Because that is what our pledge says. So we can't just write words, learn them by rote, mumble them, and then send people out and expect that they will become these good little sheeples who will then perform according to what we expect, especially when they don't understand what it is that their duties and responsibility look like, and how to hold other workers in the society accountable for how they discharge their role. So whether you are elected, unelected, whether you are sworn like I was for a time as a police officer, the rest of the society need to know what to expect from me as I discharge my function and how to hold me accountable. And not do it on an emotive basis, but do it based on what this job is all about and what it should contribute to building a nation and to contribute to the welfare of the whole human race. And I don't think that is idealistic. I think that we can take concrete steps to ensure we prepare our people for those things, because they don't know, they don't understand. And that is why it is so easy for them to be led down a path that is inimical to the well-being of the entire society, because they don't have purpose, they don't understand purpose. So you have to educate into purpose.
So, Silburn, could I ask Novelette a question around that?
Yes.
Novelette's making an important point, and of course, before the education goes to us, to those of us who need to be taught, it's about the educators.
Yep.
So Novelette, from what you're saying, then, and in the sense you're talking about where we are now, what we call the 21st learning and skills of collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking. And so where are our academics and academia? Because historically, they have a leadership role to help give society that clarity and definition. And so without that group, where are they? What are they doing? What are your perspective on that part of society?
Well, we have a lot of schools, we have colleges, we have universities. People enroll in them, and probably more women than men are enrolling in the higher learning institutions. But again, if people don't appreciate the function of a fully rounded and educated citizen, we might find ourselves being overly preoccupied with just mere academic achievement or academic certification, but still not fully prepared for roles and responsibility and duties as a citizen. So these are my personal views based on why, so other people in academia might very well say, but we're doing it. I can't say I went through school, high school, and I went to universities, and I got prepared academically, but I suspect that because of the depth and breadth of the reading that I did on my own from I was a child, both history and other things, that created a context for me to be able to think a little more critically and so on, because that is what academic is supposed to help you with problem solving. But outside of the strict academic that you're going to get certified for, how much thinking are people encouraged to do, and and you can't wait until you're at university level, obviously, to do it. I know I hear talk about we're going to teach critical thinking, but what does that mean? It's not just a mechanical process. It is a way of, to me, is a way of life. It's a skill that you're going to develop that will take you through life. So I can't really comment fully on what the academics are doing. I know they put out papers,
training.
They will teach, right. I had a seminar in May with some teachers from about 4 primary schools. It was a positive peace seminar, and I said, in my humble opinion, again, this is merely an opinion, it is not based on any empirical data, is that if how often do we look at teacher training, the curriculum there, and how do we prepare teachers? Because here's the thing, as a society, we keep talking about the failings of parenting, that there's a huge gap there. Some of the challenges that we're facing in the society is a result of the failures of parenting. Now, it would then be, I would counterintuitive to recognize if we're having a failing there, you can't look back to the same system to correct what is going amiss. So one of the key areas that we have thousands of kids who go to school each year and spend at least, especially from primary school, from early childhood right up to high school, they are there for about 15 or more years, right? So how do you prepare those people that they are interacting with to help, with some of these things that we need parents to do, when we know parents really don't have the knowledge and skills to do it? So I was asking them, do you believe that, there should be another look at how teachers are prepared and so on? I was more blunt than that, but I don't want to step on anybody's on the internet. And I mean, they were in agreement with my assessment and my views on it, because you have a captive audience of young people.
Yes.
And if you don't really understand how to prepare people for 21st century challenges in a globalized world where, we love lament and say, oh, there was a time when the village used to grow the child. And I keep telling people, the village still grows the child. It's just that the village is not local anymore. And you really have no control of who is in the village. And the question that we're not asking, what are the values and beliefs and attitudes of the people in the village? Or how are they teaching people about being responsible, about being productive, about how they look at authority? These are critical things that help to prepare people. So I believe that we need to really look at our system. That's why I said, you have to look at your structures and your institutions. And when we talk about attitudes, we're talking about our ideologies, our philosophies, our morals, our views on justice, our expectations, all those things are, combined in that one little idea called attitude. And so if we don't start to really take a proactive approach in how we educate and prepare people to be responsible citizens, can't just assume it will happen. That's
one second, Rudi, before you go any further, I want to come to you, Rudi, on a point. But I wanted to sort of thank people for coming on, those on TikTok. Thanks, Marsh. Thanks, Dutch Gaza. Those on LinkedIn as well. Thank you for those joining on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mr. Rudi Page from the UK here, and also Ms. Novelette Grant, former Deputy Commissioner of Police. Is that correct? Commissioner of Police?
Yes.
Commissioner of Police. Looking at the whole aspect of true emancipation and independence. And we have a discussion. Rudi, before you go on to your point, I just want you to have this in the back of your mind. From the UK perspective, as you straddle the UK and Jamaica, but and as sort of thinker within the UK, how does Jamaicans in the UK view sort of emancipation as well from a perspective? But you can go ahead and follow up on the point you wanted to do with Novelette.
Just following on why I raised the academic point with Novelette, and then the role of those who are responsible for teacher education, which Novelette touched on the end. A few years ago, here in the UK, the Home Affairs Select Committee within Parliament said that for any provision as it relates to young people in this country should have 3 clear themes. And that's about attitude, which Novelette spoke about that, aspirations, and attainment. Attitude, aspiration, and attainment. So the provision of any of educational services. So that says something about the system of the providers of education. And so, and Novelette has already mentions about the systems and structures. So, and we're in the 21st century where we talk about learning and skills, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, etc. Communication, as we said. And because that's where we're going to get the leadership and transformation, the resource management, which historically wasn't there. So again, but we've got great talent as well, and we know that. So yeah. So in answer to your question then, Sylvan, I think in the UK, it's much more about the independence, because the independence has quite an emotional feeling for many people. Just because of, from a parent, if you look at the UK, so primarily our parents were born pre-1962.
Yes.
So it's really the second and third generations that think about the term independence. But of course, from the UK perspective, again, it's a celebration of your heritage much more than necessarily thinking about, well, what does, going back to Novelette's point, what does that actually mean from where we're coming from? And we spoke about, 100 years before independence and what the people needed to do to get there. So for here, what is good as well about it though here is that for the third and fourth generation, what we would call now, it's at least a recognition of where they come from, their grandparents and parents,
Yeah.
And with the Caribbean community as a whole, there's still a strong sense of where they come from, because your grandparents, great grandparents are not that far away from you. So it's a good point of recognition, independence from where we're coming from a UK perspective.
I want to bring in a point that Neville Ying came up with, and we can pick up on this, but a very important point emerging from the discussion is the role of education transformation in empowering our people, building their creative and decision-making capacity to make us independent. Now, that's a very good point he mentioned, to make us independent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So therefore, the word independent should not just be we're independent. There's got to be a deeper thing than that, isn't it? That's what Neville is saying here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an action word. It's to be independent to me is an action word, because how do you? It's not just about we have this celebration and we get holidays and we have parties and we drink, but come the 8th of August. I step back into your world of work, into your, the fun part is over.
Yes.
As an independent citizen, what does that look like? How do you live your life as an independent person? Can you make decisions on your own, knowing that you are able to find the information that you need, where to go and you know who to go to, and you hold people accountable, you hold yourself accountable. You're not dependent, waiting on somebody else to solve things for us. We have to have that idea that we are responsible for ourselves. So as a nation, we are responsible for our fate. You said it, our fate is in our own hands, right? And what does that look like, working as a collective rather than us being at, these different factions and group of people struggling and going for some kind of weird competition, rather than collaborating and problem solving. Because if your education don't, fail to prepare you to thinking, to have developed that mindset, to have those kind of philosophy, ideologies, whatever you want to call it, values, beliefs, and to be able to work together, in an honest and generous way and a respectful way, and understand why each person has a different role and how it contributes to my well-being, and therefore I should honor and show it respect. If you're not prepared by the education system to do that, who's going to do it? And this is what I'm saying. It can't be about how many CXC or who pass with whatever kind of honors. You have to leave the education system equipped to be able to fulfill whatever roles that you are going to embrace, even to be a parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that as a teenager, I should know that I don't have the resources required to become a parent, and therefore I'm going to think about how I engage in sexuality. You understand what I'm saying? How I manage my sexuality.
But doesn't that suggest, so, Novelette, that there's been some learning in the system from the age of 10, 11, 12?
Or even earlier. And consistent. And right, there should be that, and it should be consistent. Not a hit or miss, or you only do it on particular days. So that is why you have to revamp curricula for everybody, from those who you educate to come and teach, and to those who you are preparing to go out as young adults, so that there is some kind of coherence as to what it is that we are about as a nation.
Exactly. And we talk about lifelong learning.
Precisely.
We talk about continuing professional development.
Right.
But again, I would go back to the independence, and I'd also go back to the 1938, late 1930s, when it was said that the society didn't have they weren't capable of the mysteries
of leadership,
right? And then they shouldn't be independent. That's what was said, and people can go and research the history. But having got independence in 1962, we said that we can lead and we can manage resources, both human and all the other aspects. So, but yet it is bound up in those messages, in the oath and the pledge and the values, as Novelette said. So it is there. So my argument all the time is it can be revisited. And not only that, going back to Novelette's point, again, somewhere in our system has to enable people to reach a consensus. Because that's how you make decisions, decide on the strategy, you reach a consensus.
Yes.
We have to be capable of listening to each other, reaching a consensus, and say, right, these are the priorities. This is the actions that we're going to translate into a workable plan. So how do we get that into the system from a systemic point of view, that it will demonstrate that we understand our collective responsibility? Because that's what Novelette in the end is talking about.
Yes, precisely. And Silburn, just to go back to the idea of leadership that Rudi mentioned, they would have said that, obviously, that the colonial people it was not in their interest to give up.
Of course.
But we know that there are factors beyond what they were saying about us that led to us getting independence and all over the Commonwealth, right? But that's a bit of history that can stay for another time. The fact of the matter is that how prepared, and as you said it, that there are people here who are looking forward to self-rule, to being independent, to be able to govern ourselves. The issue for us is we, as I said, how have we been preparing successive leadership groups, a cohort of leadership there. To lead not just at the national political level, but at the local level, leading in institutions, leading everywhere, because leadership is not just confined to those who we elect. And then what is the kind of leadership that we want? Principled and transformative and accountable leadership. And the only way you get that if you start to build those values and ideals into the people from they were young. When we look at other countries that are doing well across the world, we see them, we talk about them, but what we fail to recognize or fully appreciate is that these people are doing the work from day one with their youth coming right up into adulthood. And so we don't have that level of structured thinking that is coherent and consistent. Who becomes a leader? How you become a leader? Populism. And what do you bring? Personality. You bring personality to the table. Not really anything substantial, you know.
So when Martha and Mary was walking, they said the baby jumped. My baby jumping at the same time because I just want to jump in. There's a person called Ellen Prezzo make a point, and I'm going to go back to that point because I like to make the comments from persons writing. I think the key question that is coming up now, Margaret and Rudi, is
not Margaret, Novelette.
Novelette and Rudi. This is it. Then what is the blockage? Don't answer it. What is the blockage after this period? Ellen Prezzo said, true emancipation, let me put it up. True emancipation and independence signify a multifaceted state of being where individuals and groups are not only freed from external constraints, but also empowered to shape their own lives, make their own choices, and thrive without being dictated or limited by oppressive forces. It is a continuous process of becoming and challenging the limits of what is considered permissible and possible. That is a comment there.
Yeah.
What is it? Go ahead, Rudi. Yeah.
How I interpret that whenever those points come up.
Yes.
Sylvan, what I say is this is a generational mission. Generational, and that's the important thing. It's a generational mission. So I agree with the points being made. So the answer to that is generational, because you can go back 100 years, go back 200 years, and you can see that there has been progression. But what we're talking about now is meeting the needs of the people now, and what, going back to the values. So what is my role? As an individual and as a collective, regardless of where I am in society, to ensure that those values are being upheld for the good of all. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge that we face all the time. And it has to go up, as Novelette's point, up from the neighborhoods, right up into the top of society. And then if you look at the contribution of young people, and are their voices being heard? And do those same young people uphold the values and respect that, that society expects of them as well?
Well, someone on TikTok is hearing your voice. They can't see, and they said, "Is that Rudi Page?" Somebody named David Chen, or one Chinese friend in Jamaica.
Yeah, from St. Thomas. Paradise View, St. Thomas.
Paradise View. Yeah,
he's well known.
He's well known. Yes. Original. Yeah. Or one black Chinese friend.
Yeah, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But can I pick up on something that what you read from the listener?
Yes.
About The reality is that as an independent nation, we are existing in a system that we call a democracy.
Yes.
The challenge there's another challenge there, because it's not just an event, it's a process.
Yes.
You understand? And it is a process that has to be nurtured every day, or it will wither, so to speak. If you are not vigilant, systems that you put in place can atrophy. values can change because somebody can come and be an influencer on groups of people or on the whole, the collective, to such a way that people, find themselves going down a path this is not where we started, and this is not where we were supposed to go, and you're not even aware of it. So the question also is, where young people are concerned, why are they so disengaged? That's the question. Why are they so disengaged? And again, it is because of a lack of proper preparation and knowledge of what it means to be a citizen living in a democratic society, and democratic and independent society that has no coercive power over you, because that is what the anthem said, guard us with thy mighty hand and keep us free from evil powers. It is that kind of idea that we don't have those kind of coercive powers dictating to us. But the question is, have we other people recognized how coercive powers can transmute and transform itself and reappear
unseen,
to people in a way that still put the screws on you, that your systems don't respond to the needs of your people, and therefore your people have no faith and no belief in anything that you say. So again, that is why the education and the vigilance are very important aspects of being a citizen in a democracy, especially when you don't have the kind of economic foundation that wasn't there when we went into independence.
That's such an important point, Novelette, because when you think about the point that you've made there, so in the systems, we're always looking for clarity, consistency, and process, right? There are policies for the development of everyone in society, all the different, the health, the community, the economic. We've just got to mention the Sustainable Development Goals that are there for all societies, and each country adapts those goals, those values, those 17 goals that cover all aspects of society. And that would give the mission. It would set out clear. I mean, we're going back 10 years, 11 years, Silver, when we first got involved with Jamaica 2030, Vision 2030.
Yes.
If you think, going back to Novelette's earlier points, if you think about it, that was comprehensive for the whole of society, for everybody. Live, work, play, educate, economic development. So,
and I want to stop it right there. And my view, and Rudi, I want to stop it right there, but stick a pin. And Novelette, my view regarding Vision 2030 was that there should not be any manifesto for any elections, because everybody is singing from the same Sankey. but that's not the thinking.
But is a miseducated, if you have a population that is miseducated.
Yes.
But we can do something about it, though. The thing is that I think there's enough talent and expertise and groups of people who can say, right, we can intervene. Because, yes, this is not the place that, if we had the choice, we wouldn't have started from where we are now. But we are where we are. Because, as I go back to my point, our ancestors started from a lot more difficult place.
Yes.
Than where we are now. Even with the issues that we have, our own issues in our neighborhoods and communities here in the UK. So I'm not saying everything's perfect. But all I'm saying is, global communities have understood that they can adapt the Sustainable Development Goals to meet their needs for all of their society. So again, can we reach a consensus?
Well, it's a great point about the consensus, and I want to have this overall mindset about, if we can zero in onto what do we consider or see as the blockages. What is that?
Not reaching a consensus is
well, you always say all ideas must contend, all voices must contend.
All ideas must contend, right? So that also means all voices must be heard.
Right? Yes.
All
But
voices must be heard.
yeah,
Novelette, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, go,
Yeah.
go.
Look. I think there are some basic expectation that every citizen in this country and in other countries will have of what they need to get out of society and what hopefully what they need to contribute to. A lot of time it is not so much the what can become murky as you said because of things like manifestos and whatnot, but even
Yeah.
within that and the volume of verbiage that will surround that, there are some basic things that people want: security,
Yes.
housing, health, education, and employment, or the ability to earn, right? Those
Yes.
are some of the basic things. So how is it that we are getting so confused around how as a society we create and provide access to those things? We get caught up in the how, and many times because there isn't a there, it's not clearly articulated in a way, and as you said, the development goals, right, were there to help us to
Yeah.
really put those in a coherent and cohesive way where everybody see what it is that this one leads into that and feeds into that and so on. And it's just a question of how do we get it done? Do we have the human capital and the monetary and other resources to get it done? So that is where the some of the blockages may lie, Silburn, and the fact that then we basically other people get turned around where people deflect from those issues and are stuck in the personality cult.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it is easy when you're in a personality cult, when that is where you operate from, for
Yes.
people to be gaslighted about what is true and what is not true, because it's not so much about issues now. When you look at what the narrative that is passing for public discourse on issues that are germane to our well-being and our growth and development as a nation, deflection becomes the order of the day because we deflect into personality. Even having a conversation one-on-one with family and friends, that is almost like that is a default mode that we revert to. You come up with an idea and I don't like it, and rather than I try to pick apart the idea and get you and listen to you explaining what you mean, I start to insult you and cuss you out. So the ad hominem come in. So there's a lot of ad hominem in the public narrative that really doesn't advance the communication and understanding for us to get to consensus. And again, it's because we have not been educated and prepared to have those kinds of discussion. And in truth and in fact, social media just amplify that ad hominem type of reasoning all over the world. So societies will have to take a very deliberate at societies like Jamaica, we'll have to take a very deliberate approach and really stop and ask ourselves, how do we really get the ideas about building a nation, an independent nation where independent people, independent individuals are empowered and enabled and skilled up to really contribute, you know?
Yeah,
So
and
I think that's part of the challenge.
Yes.
Not
to
full
support
challenge, but I think that's part of it.
to support that point, Silburn, in terms
Yeah.
of Novelette, it's just laid out there. I would use an example that we're using here now as an example, and this is to do with the health system.
Yes.
So you remember during COVID, and during COVID, they said that the African and Caribbean communities, weren't taking the vaccine, weren't getting involved, etc., etc.
Yes.
So we had a program called Trusted Messengers, where we had the people who were professionally qualified in our communities, doctors, nurses, etc., got involved and were part of the communication to build trust with the community, to explain to them what should be done.
Yes.
In their best own interests. right? As long as people had the information, they make their choice. And that was done on the basis of what we were saying, and we say it now, is collective responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? So in health now, what we're saying is we've got thousands of, if not hundreds of thousands of some of the most well-qualified people coming from our communities in the health system here. So there's no reason why that we cannot contribute to improving the health of our own community. It's about self-care, community care, rather than just say the system is just failing us. But we've got all these thousands and thousands of people getting awards all the time. We see it on LinkedIn, social media all the time.
Yes.
Getting awards. And we're saying, well, actually, so we need to think about what's our collective responsibility and approach to improving the health of our community. And one top nurse said to me, she said, Rudi, our health workers are not taking the health messages. Our health professionals are not taking the health messages to our homes and our communities. So that's about collective responsibility. And then at the same time, a survey was done a couple of years ago, and the public said, the community said they wanted our health professionals to collaborate more as well. Because if our health professionals collaborated with each other, that would also contribute to the welfare of the health, health and well-being of the community. And you could say the same about educators. You could say the same about business people. You could say about the creative industries, our music, our culture. You could say that about all the different professions in society.
So what I'm picking up is about a collective responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rudi Page speaking, for those on TikTok who are not seeing, and also for LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook. Rudi Page is an award-winning leadership and management consultant based in the UK, known for his work within the community. And also I'm joined with Miss Police, former acting commissioner of police, Novelette Grant, in regards to Emancipation Day. Thanks for those joining on TikTok. A question that I want to ask, and as we are landing soon, Novelette, looking at Jamaica's progress since emancipation and independence, what would you say are, I think we sort of alluded, but I'm trying to sort of pin it down. What I would say are the most significant challenges and opportunities you see in promoting dignity, safety, and opportunity for all Jamaicans? But one of the things I see sometimes, and Rudi and I, we can see Jamaica through the eyes of the social media. We can see Jamaica through the eyes of broker. We can see Jamaica through the eyes of PNP, and then we say, what is really Jamaica? You know what I'm trying to say? And is it that networks like civil society, churches need to play a key role in delivering this objective?
We have made some progress as a society. For example, me getting an education as a woman would not have been possible if changes weren't made in the whole social system to ensure that everybody had access, whether you're male or female, right? So that's a given, and so on. So we see how vibrant Jamaica is as a place where people are attracted to us, want to be like us for whatever reason. So there is no doubt about that. But when you look at the potential that Jamaica has, then the question does arise: what is it that is holding us back? And it goes back to some of the very things we're saying. It is a quality of leadership that can not be a kind of somebody who's coming to save you, but can lay out the kind of vision in a way. And I mean, consistency is key about who we are and where we are at now and where we can go and how we get there. Without the noise and the conflict and the quarrels and all of that. And it takes work to communicate with people. Just going back to some of what Rudi was saying, how do we, and you mentioned it to Silburn, how do we get the different groups of people, those who are in government, employment, in whatever institutions of the state that you're in, plus those who are in civil society, how do we grasp the narrative and then, distill it downward to the man on the street, the woman on the corner, the boys and the girls in school, so that we kind of have an idea who we are. Because, I remember being on a course elsewhere some years ago with a number of people from across the world, and a number of us Jamaicans were on it. And the question came up about about the national interests of different countries.
Yes.
And we looked at each other and we said, but we have never spoken about that. What exactly is our national interest if we were to go and represent it elsewhere? So again, how do we frame the narrative that the public can, quote unquote, buy into,
sign up to,
right, and see and become energized and want to contribute to this because this makes sense. There's a lot of noise and a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, if you ask people what is it that we want to achieve, you might get ideas about this, that, but it doesn't carry a long-term vision in a way that really will energize and mobilize people voluntarily, that I like this, I'm gonna do it. I feel passionate about it. These are some of the who is responsible for creating the narrative or a narrative framework within which people can come and have their ideas heard, and it get pulled into whatever is percolating and come out and make sense. I don't know. So what we need is that kind of environment and a kind of narrative that can unite people to some kind of common view and goal about what it means to be Jamaican and what does a successful Jamaica look like.
Yeah, and
about promises and whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
We're back to the mysteries of leadership again, aren't we?
I know.
It's there. I'm writing it down. Yeah.
See, the thing is, just to ask Novelette a couple of questions around that, actually, Silver, that come to mind as Novelette was speaking. And I had this discussion with some creative Jamaican creatives, highly creative people, but what they kept saying was the government is the government that. So
who is the government?
Is this not a government of the people, given that we're independent?
Well, I always say, you vote out the government, who are you gonna get next? The government.
Right, but it's a government of the same people that we're talking about. So again, we're back to this consensus in society.
And Rudi, it goes back to the point that I made. We are an independent country because we don't have a sovereign monarch really telling us what to do on a day-to-day basis. But we are living in this thing called a democracy. And what does that mean? What does that look like? What is my part in that democracy? And within a democracy, if the people don't see themselves as the government, with people who are leading us, then we are stuck. In other words, what we have actually done mentally and ideologically is to say that we have swapped a monarch and we have elected the local rulers who are supposed to have all the answers and provide us with the lifestyle that we want. And that could be a default thinking, and it is because we were not properly educated and prepared, that we not recognizing that as citizens, we are the government. And that we hire people on our behalf through a vote, an election and a vote, to run our affairs. And we have the responsibility to hold them accountable, that they deliver on our behalf. But if we keep seeing government as this separate entity that is disconnected from us,
the boss.
So in a way, it is almost like when we had a sovereign monarch ruling us.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? When you didn't have a voice, When you didn't have a voice, you couldn't dare tell the king or contradict the king off with your head. But if we are mentally still stuck in that way of thinking, even from a subconscious perspective, then we will treat our elected leaders that we elect in the same way. They are distant, they are out there, they have all the answers. Why don't the government do this?
That sounds like blindfolded, but we won't get into that. So there's another.
But we have to dig into our own unconscious biases, you know, Rudy.
Yes.
Because these are the things that shape our attitudes and our behaviors.
Right. My other question then, Novelette, would be going back to 2012. And this is the Olympics, the London Olympics, where Jamaica had a fantastic relay team.
Yes.
And we used to use that we used to replay that relay race.
Yes.
Talking to young people on the theme of passing the baton, teamwork. Because if you remember, by the time Jamaica got to the third leg, they had actually won the race.
Yes. Yes.
And when you look at the development, the commitment, the sacrifice, and the leadership in order to get the team there, I always wondered why didn't that translate into wider society, given the accolades Jamaica got globally? I've never really understood why not.
Because again, we look at those development is an event, it's a race, we won, we the noise and the celebration, but we don't really delve deeply into these successes and ask ourselves, why did we succeed or why didn't we succeed? So that these we don't really use those as teaching moments, and in truth and in fact, there are many of us who don't need to wait on any. We don't need to wait on anybody at the top to do that for us. We can do it at where we are, because all of us are part of various groups, institutions, and structures. That I keep going back to that, because this is when we have to start to take responsibility for a lot of the things that we complain about, because we have in fact abdicated too much of it and are laying the responsibility for faceless and nameless people that we really don't even know who they are. Because if you talk to the ordinary person on the street, they can tell you probably who the prime minister, the leader of the opposition, and a few ministers. But generally speaking, a lot of people don't know who the other members of parliament are. Because we don't pay attention. And it's not, you can't blame them because we don't know. We have a high degree of literacy in the country. So why don't we know things? Why are we abdicating our responsibility? But again, it's something you have to educate people to want to take hold of and to live up to it.
We've got some great local neighborhoods, leaders and communities.
Yes.
I mean, Jamaica has 776 communities across the island.
I know, yes.
And you can go into the neighborhoods and see some great leadership that actually things would be even worse if those leaders weren't there and doing what they do on a day-to-day basis, taking care of those who need support and, encouraging, providing scholarships for young people. So it's not as though it's not there, but it's the scale and impact.
Scale, right.
What would we say then? What would we say then are the 5 key takeaways that can deliver should I say, some fundamental shift or change? One of the things that I see a lot is okay, I'll give you an example. We're not going to get into it, but politics, for argument's sake, leading up to an election very shortly. I'm looking at the outcome of the election, the outcome of the election, whether it is PNP or JLP, but the work that needs to be done after that to build and to deliver. That is the thing I always talk about, because in every country they have it. You got this massive level of division leading up to an election. And then after election, then the leader will come up and say, well, we have to come together. We got to work together. We got to build together.
But the work is never done, Silburn. The work to actually get there. A pronouncement doesn't get you a result.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it takes work, deliberate work,
And you know,
consistent work. And that is where we have failed ourselves over successive decades.
right,
Yes.
one of the challenges, and we haven't used the word, which is missing from this discussion, and
Yes.
it's important, the points that be made, spirituality.
Well, one
The
minister,
role of our
one
spiritual
minister said
leaders.
one time, you need divine intervention, and people laugh at him.
Well, we've got
Yeah,
spiritual leaders, right? So
Okay, in that respect.
Or is it that we have really, is it spiritual or religious leaders?
well,
Because I don't think they are
deliberately
one and the
I
same.
I deliberately didn't use the word religious leaders.
I don't think they are
Okay.
one and the same, Silburn. I'm sorry, I'm Rudy. I don't think they are one and the same. but
And they
I hear
absolutely
you.
are not. They absolutely
Yeah.
are not. No,
Yes.
they absolutely are not. So there's something, the spirituality, and yet we have the greatest music on this earth, reggae.
Indeed.
So I'd be interested to
Yeah, go on, Rudy.
get a
Sorry.
perspective on the spiritual aspect. So Novelette's mentioned the values aspect, but there's also a spiritual aspect as well, isn't there?
Yeah, this spirituality factor is something. Yes. Novelette, you want to say something, and then we sort of
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I think you know, as I said before a while ago, and I still put that point there. I won't touch on the spirituality a bit too much, but if we're going to touch on the spiritual a bit, you have to ask yourself the question: where is the church leadership collectively? You know, moving things. Where is civil
Faith.
society?
Faith
Well,
and spirituality.
yeah, civil society collectively, moving things on. When you had, I remember when there was the recent increase with the government, and I remember different civil society group, advocates network, which I consider myself a part of. Was out there daily, and then a lot of people were just passing by, and this group was there, and it's like this group was somehow the voice of the people, but somehow people feel like they couldn't play a part. And then someone was speaking to me today, and they wanted to come on, and they said, "Oh, Silver, I can't come on. I said, "Why?" There's something in the government booklet or whatever, because the government is a chief employer, massive employer of people.
Yeah.
And the book, let's say they can't speak out on issues that may deem to be political, but actually it is an issue for people, Novelette.
Of course it is.
It is people talking things. They're not PNP or JLP. They're raising their voices, but they feel dumbed down. No.
Yeah, because one of the things that we need to politics affects everybody from the womb to the tomb. That's what the great professors at university used to tell us, right? And so you can't avoid it. However, I think while you're serving, you're not supposed to just come out and criticize and speak about government policies in a way that undermines, but that doesn't stop you from having free speech and expressing your opinion in a respectful way. I don't think.
Yes.
And I would think that is still permissible, because again, it's a democracy, and the Constitution says you have freedom of conscience and freedom of speech and so on. But one of the key issues for us here, there's a deficit of trust.
Yeah.
That's a big issue in this country, whether we like it or not, because it gets in the way of us wanting to be engaged and part of a process. We don't trust it. We don't trust how we will be seen, how we'll be accepted, whether or not our voice will be heard. And then we also are very skeptical about those who actually have a platform and a voice. We don't believe what they are telling us. And to a large extent, the history of the decades since independence give people enough fodder to actually have, come to that kind of position. So again, principled leadership is required, right? Authentic leadership. And I mean that from the grassroots in the over 700 communities, in the various institutions in these communities. We have to have that. And how do we get back to there? And so to overcome that is going to be a lot of consistent work. And we also need to show that there is some form of equity in how things are done, who gets what, where, when, and how, and so on. So that's why I go back to attitudes, because the societies that actually are showing the kind of peacefulness that we want, and
Yes.
the peacefulness, the economic growth, are the societies who have worked a lot on the attitudes here, and where there is clarity, to borrow from what Rudi was saying, and there is consistency, and the process is known, and you can see. So right now there's just, as I said, a lot of noise in Jamaica around things, and where people have turned their backs, because we have seen it as each successive election cycle comes around, the participation goes down.
Yes.
Right? And it is because of distrust.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to follow on that, and from what you've both just said very quickly, so Silburn, you said a really important point: spirit of civil society.
Yes.
It's spiritual, isn't it? That we're willing to collaborate, cooperate, build trust amongst ourselves. So we're willing to give and contribute. And then that whole collaboration, trust, and cooperation, going back to what Novelette was saying, that's how we ask people then to get involved. People get involved then. So we need all those things fitted together.
Yeah. The point that I wanted to have come in, and Novelette, you sort of put a segue right into it, is in regards to the last election. There was 37% came out to vote of the 1.92 million people who were on the electoral list. And that works out to be, according to the figure, 408 or 405,000 for the JLP, 304 or 5,000 so for the PNP. So therefore 1.92 million. So therefore 67% or 63% didn't turn out to vote. And now you have to ask the question. One of the things in the UK at the election, where there was a coalition with David Cameron and Nick Clegg, the pundits and that professor, Rudi, who always comes out and analyzes the whole thing. He said, "What are the people saying here?" And then look at the bigger picture. The picture is saying that we do not trust any one of you alone to run the country. So it had to be David, Conservative, and Lib Dem. That was what came out.
Yeah.
What is it saying in Jamaica when you have 37% of the electorate came out to vote? What is that saying about that 63%? What are they saying? The 37%, one can say, and many people say, don't worry, they are dieharded. They are, no matter what happened,
yeah, they're going to turn up.
But what is this 67%? What is this 63% people? Who are they, Novelette?
I suspect a number of them are young people, because some of the old traditional diehards for both sides have probably gone to their reward. They are not the bulk of the people anymore. And so and then you run into people who proudly tells you that I have never voted. And they say it with pride because they don't trust either side. And I always say to them, I use a simple analogy. Somebody has to run the country.
Yes.
And our economy, think about it like a partner job. Right? You pay a tax for everything in some way, shape, and form. And so the government is run either by the taxation here, or loans or grants that they get from overseas people, or but they borrow money locally and overbroad, whatever. But it is borrowed in our name, right? So if you are putting something in the pool, the big pool called the Jamaican economy that the government is responsible for, why wouldn't you want to determine, to have a say in how it is managed and by whom? You know, I'm trying to get people to say that. When they tell me that, I said, you are abdicating your role and responsibility as a citizen. You don't care for it. So how do you then get the kind of society that you want?
So
Because you end up being is a minority rule, so to speak, because they determine who gets in and who decides what. And so the rest of us are treated as, well, you're just here for us to tax.
you didn't vote. But there's a
Because
term
you really have taken yourself out of the game. You have not even become an interested bystander.
Yeah, I mean, there's a term we use at that local level: rethinking representation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what people will tell you. They will tell you about what they observe, what they experience, and Silburn. And when they tell you that, they tell you this is why I won't vote.
Yes.
And once you run up on that kind of wall in their thinking, you have a very difficult time getting them to let go of it. So there's that disenchantment with the whole system. So the system itself also needs to clean up, but it won't clean up unless the 67% get involved.
But is that then, Novelette, on the basis that if you vote for somebody, a representative, that you don't feel that they're going to represent your needs?
That's what
they're not going to be advocates.
Right, because again, the way we have our politics has evolved over the last how many decades. I think it almost like a form of clientelism is there between the people and the political parties, in a way that if somebody voted and I didn't get a direct benefit as an individual who voted, then you have not done anything for me. I am not educated and socialized to look at the bigger picture to say whether or not there is the kind of road infrastructure that is required, the kind of education, the kind of healthcare, those kinds of things, and whether the economy is supporting me so that I can earn a living and take care of myself, whether I'm going to be an entrepreneur or I'm going to be somebody who is employable. So because we are not socialized to think on that level, you have people will tell you, I'm not voting because I am not getting anything. So people expect to get something directly in their
something
hand.
something tangible
in my hand. Yes, I voted for you. So when I see you or when I come to you, you're supposed to give me something. There's that kind of thinking that is out there too.
So then that means then, Novelette, we should burden people such as yourself and Professor Ying to come up with the problem-solving approach.
Yes, they are the professors.
I'm being serious because what you set out there is the problem, and there are people such as yourselves who we would expect to come up with a plan that we can all support.
No, you see, talking to people on the ground over the many years, and in 2025, you still get that kind of, I don't know what percentage of the people think that way, but if you hear it from a few people, it tells you that it is around.
Yeah,
and it is not just those who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. You when you talk to certain people, all right, so you will hear people like Professor Monroe championing the whole business of campaign financing, because the persons at the bottom will tell you that, look here, the people at the top, let them get this. And the dynamics of how our politics evolve in Jamaica and what it looks like today is part of the reason for the deficit of trust and the disengagement and the apathy.
So what would you, as a problem solver then?
I wish I were.
Right. What would you recommend then to as an intervention, because in these situations we have to have an intervention plan. We talk about intervention in the system all the time. So that has again, we're back to the mysteries of leadership. We're talking about
but we have had our quote unquote missionaries, not religious missionaries, but those people who are there shouting in the wilderness, so to speak, telling people about what needs to happen and how our participation is important in getting us along that path. The trouble with it is that people see that as probably hard work. I don't want to be involved. I am afraid. All kinds of reasons why. So that when people are talking about the kind of, even talking about the king not being head of state, it's not just about replacing the king with somebody local, but you have the same systems and structures left in place, because nothing would have changed, right? So when you have people who want to educate people about what it means around, for having good governance and what are the changes that are required, it's very hard to get people to want to come to listen to those kind of conversation. And so the question would be then, from a practical standpoint, how do we get into, if not all, but the bulk of the 776 communities? What would it take to evangelize these ideas of the kind of transformative change that we want to get on the ground in all of these communities, to get people interested? That is where the Professor Ying probably can tell you.
Right? And that then brings me down to that brings me round to the use of culture. So Rex Nettleford's always said to use culture as a tool for development. And then you look at the kind of work Barry Shevens did, Professor Shevens, in the neighborhoods. So the use of culture is an important tool, isn't it?
Because the music played a huge role, starting, I think, in the 1970s in electioneering in Jamaica and campaigning, and it is still. But the question is, what is the narrative that is being pushed via culture? See, and is it the usual kind of low? When I say it low impact in terms of, the narrative is not of it make you feel good and you laugh and you say, oh yeah, my side is killing it, but it really doesn't doesn't address the fundamental issues.
Again,
so it's how you get the fundamental issues quoted and encoded in cultural messages to get people energized and want to participate.
Aligns with the values.
Right.
I want to land now. I want to just, Neville Young flagged up a point there a while ago, but I said to him, he will have to come and do a show on this. It's about, before you end the discussion, could we look at how the world is being reshaped by tariffs, immigration policies, and technology, in particular AI? I said to Professor Young, I said, no message, you'll have to do a show on that.
Recent heads away from that one.
Recent heads of government have started looking seriously at relationship with African countries in new scenario, geopolitical. Professor Young, you have given us some ideas for some more shows.
I agree with that.
But what I would say though, Sylvia, I would say when think of the late Sonny Ramphal.
Yes.
And all the work that he did, there was in fact that was a West Indian commission. Interesting enough, run by primarily Caribbean people. I think it's about 30 years ago now. Time for Action. They went all around the diasporas, the Caribbean, spoke to everybody, put together a great report, which was a part of the foundation of CARICOM.
Yes.
Even that plan has never been translated into any kind of action.
Yes.
Because just something that I saw Professor Yin in his last thing there, these ideas that he pushed there, whether we are independent or not. My take has been from day one is that we should be interdependent in the world, but we are not necessarily interdependent as we should, because the might of the economic might, if you lack it when you go out to the bargaining table or the negotiating table or what diplomatic table or whatever you want to call it, you go there generally as a supplicant, because you can't really shape international rules and norms and policies
certain
in a
things,
way, right? Because you lack the economic might to do it. And usually is so that is why I had mentioned earlier as to whether or not, when you think about coercive powers, whether they have transformed themselves and appear in different ways and means, but still are calling the shots. And basically, it's because you lack economic independence. Countries that lack economic independence can navigate their way better than an indebted country like us, for example. Right? We would be fooling ourselves if we don't agree with that. If we don't understand that, and a lot of people probably don't understand that. When you look at our biggest earner right now is tourism, how much of that remains in Jamaica? Well, you know, we suspect that the bulk of it goes out of Jamaica, and so on. So again, you have to go to the table. The current global system and structure is not about interdependence, it's about dominance, because each country is seeking to be to get the best they can for their people.
For their people,
right. So
and if you represent 100 million,
that's a global reality. Right?
Well,
for us in Jamaica, you asked a question earlier, Silver. We are on the cusp of another general election.
Yes.
Whoever wins, what next? So what? You win, so what? If the incumbents go back, so what? If the other side come in, so what? Because the work that is to be done, how are you going to engage the people of Jamaica
to take them
in a way? First of all, can you galvanize them to go to the poll, both sides? That's the question we will see. That's a question that will be answered. And after you have declared victory, and one thing we have done very well, we have conceded elections in Jamaica without any quarrel, right? We have to clap ourselves at that. But having conceded and taken a new oath for a new term, whoever, how do you pull the nation behind you to fix the things that needs fixing? That is the task. And do we as a people know what to ask for and how to hold people accountable if they don't deliver? We have to now educate ourselves around that.
So, Novelette, so you're saying, can we reach a consensus?
Well, we should be able to reach consensus on some basic things, I believe.
And one of the things,
rocket science.
And one of the things that I was thinking the other day, and I just grab a few policies for argument's sake. When it comes on to crime, it would be so great if there's a sitting down of key stakeholders, PNP, JLP, civil society, and you formulate something which is workable. So therefore, if there's a change of government, you're not going to move too much away from what is. Let's use an example, the buses, for argument's sake. It would have been great if there was a formulated policy joint up. That means to say that if a new government, they're not going to dash for the bus or something like that. But somebody dropped a penny and said to me, well, Silburn, what is going to happen there is that the government who is in power will take the credit for that development. And therefore, that's not going to serve the opposition. Am I correct?
Yeah, but Vision 2030.
Jamaica Vision. Again, competition, It's about competing interests rather than one singular collective interest. And in truth and in fact, the sitting down has happened so many times with so many papers and so many ideas that we agree on. Why are we weak on execution? That's the question.
Yeah, because when you read the forward, Silburn, to Jamaica 2030 vision done in 2014, it says that everybody sat down together. Policymakers, communities.
They broke bread and they're washing up feet and everything like that.
Right?
Yep.
It says it a lot.
Yep. So as you said, when we the people, because we don't have fixed term, for example, that is why probably oppositions are afraid to collaborate in a way that would make that is a collective decision and everybody take credit. But the people going to say, but it's not you do it, is are the people who do it is going to say it's us do it, and you're going to be out in the wilderness like forever useless. So you see why the whole system needs renewal. It needs renewal because it is not serving anybody's best interest, or at least the best interest of the collective. It might be serving the best interest of a small percentage of the population, but certainly not the collective. So when we talk about getting rid of the monarch, like I said, Silver, you want to land your jet, but just the final point is it goes back to the kind of like I said, the kind of structures, the kind of institutions and the attitudes as in people who talk about positive peace tell us about, and whether or not we're going to come up with a well-functioning government and understanding what that means, understanding what it means to have equitable distribution of resources, when we have free and free flow of information, when we have good relations with the neighbors within our own society and outside. Right, for us it would be our Caribbean and the rest of the world, and whether we are going to have work to ensure that our human capital is at the best as it should be, and whether or not we're going to have low levels of corruption and sound business environment. Those are the things that when you look at what we teach in positive peace and what we learn, when we look at countries and you use these things to measure them, you actually see the country where these things exist and are working as they should be, and they are doing well economically and socially and politically. When we can't get these things to work in our country, then obviously we're going to be stuck in the doldrums.
But Rudi, what's your last words, Rudi?
I support that, and I guess my last words would be, can we revisit Jamaica Vision 2030? Because everything that Novelette just said is in the document.
Yeah, you know, we have a discussion many times on it. We discuss it. And
we probably need another discussion then, because at the moment in 2025, many countries, and again, academic institutions who I've been involved with, they're all talking about acceleration towards the goals. You know, and they're revisiting, resharing.
Yes, and re-educating the public.
Absolutely. Maybe that should be on the agenda as being important.
Well, a few of my takeaways from tonight, and this is a key one, is the quality of leadership is needed to deliver the outcome, the quality of leadership. And how do we get the quality of leadership, and where do we get the quality of leadership from? If you remember Johnny Barnes, Rudi, when they talk about the big issue with racism in society, racism in football, and Johnny Barnes kept saying, how are you going to get racism out of football when racism is in society? You know, so therefore the quality of leadership is needed to deliver the outcome. Where do you get the quality of leadership from? The Prime Minister said, we give all this money now so we can get the right leaders in, but then Nigel Clark fly out right away, you know? So
call Professor Ying to convene the meeting.
He's gonna have to get out back there and start teaching people about what leadership
exactly.
It's not about the pay, it's about the values and the attitudes and the beliefs, the ideologies, the morals, the ethics. And you don't get it because you get a big salary. You don't get it overnight. You don't come to pay.
Yes. And of course, Professor Ying, I'm promoting his books now. His 2 books on servant leadership.
Yes.
And of course, Professor Ling, you're invited. We'll have a sit down on it, and
I'm expecting a free book now from Professor Ling.
Yes. Sign autograph. And we need a voice activated section that says, "Thank you, Silver."
Yes, absolutely. You know that nice deep voice.
And the second one is about groups working together. What we talk about, you know. And the environment also, the environment which is needed, and we touch on spirituality as well, and the bit that you mentioned, Novelette, was deficit of trust.
Yeah, trust, collaboration, trust,
Yeah.
and cooperation. Without that,
Yeah.
got no chance of transformational work, thinking,
Yeah.
structural change without collaboration, trust, and cooperation at the same time.
Someone said, I'm gonna pick up one of this. Rome was not built in a day. No,
And
people
we
say that.
agree, because remember, right at the beginning, we said that
Yeah.
this is a generational mission.
Yeah, but I say this, but Rome was built.
And Rome went through its own upheavals.
Some
people had to move out of the way by whatever means they were moved out of the way.
Yes.
Some people even burnt it in order to restart it.
Yeah.
There we go.
So,
And I always like to remind people, 3/4 of the Roman Empire was in Africa. That's
exactly.
Yeah. And that's the other discussion again as to the African diaspora, the Afro area. Where are we now? Somebody was saying one time to me was, how do we know where we're from? If they put me through ancestry thing, will they see Jamaica? Say no, you're not going to see Jamaica. You're going to see Africa.
Probably West Africa more.
West Africa, something of that nature.
My daughter did mine, so I know.
Yes.
My father right back to the ancient city of Benin in Nigeria, and my mother Sierra Leone.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done it, but I went to Ghana and they christened me. They gave me a new name. So
okay.
Queen Novelette. Queen Novelette.
Yeah. So I'm Ghanaian.
Queen Novelette.
Well, Neverling said, let's reset after the elections. Everything after election. Well, I think they're going to call election tomorrow. What was the prophetic voice? Who was that voice there?
Yeah, maybe Tuesday. Who knows?
Tuesday.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Tuesday, whatever.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys so much tonight for coming on. And as Professor Ying said, it's a timely discussion at this time, and I think it is very important. And as you rightly say, Novelette, there's so many noises out there. So many noises out there, and sometimes you got to go through the ways. You got to go through the maze, and try to analyze. And sometimes that is why sometimes they say people's span of concentration is so small, and but I always say this all the while. And Rudi, remember during the course of the COVID period, when they said the span of concentration was short, people are watching thousands of hours of conspiracy theories. So people will gravitate to something that will build them and nourish them, and we got to get the word out there as much as possible.
You're doing your part, Silver.
You're doing my part.
We're doing our part the best we can.
Yes.
We just need a few more evangelists to be out there doing and evangelizing on what to have our country moving forward. It's all about governance and development.
Yeah. And I'm very pleased to meet you, Novelette. We haven't
same
met
here,
before.
Rudi. Same
That's
here.
really good to meet you. Yeah.
Well, we link up at Ochi then. We link up at Ochi. All roads lead to Ochi.
Indeed.
But actually, I saw a video the other day that David Chen did with me 18 years ago in Lancaster House.
Really?
And it's the same thing I say, same speech. We come from Ochi, straight out of yard. And then somebody say, come from Ochi, man. So I always say that it's my favorite, it's my hometown, Novelette. So that's why I
agree with you. Once you're born here, you can claim every inch of Jamaica.
Exactly.
There are no rules.
All right. Well, thank you so much for.
You're most welcome, Silver. It was my pleasure to be here with you and Rudi.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Rosemary Binder for linking us as well as much as possible. And Rudi, as usual, we're there. We call every day a talk. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining tonight. Very good discussion with Novelette Grant and also Mr. Rudi Page. And, timely discussion, as Professor Ying said. Just for the record and just for background, Novelette Grant, distinguished retired Deputy Commissioner of Police, DCP in the Jamaica Constable Force, and served as Acting Commissioner of Police in 2017. Her career in law enforcement span over 36 years, marked by trailblazing accomplishment and steadfast commitment to reform, community engagement, and professionalism. And of course, Rudi Page, an award-winning leadership and management consultant based in the UK, known for his significant work connecting the Caribbean diaspora, especially the Jamaican community, with international development, healthcare, and community empowerment initiative. Thank you so much. And the discussion was really helpful, and I'm sure that the listeners found it very well. People on TikTok has been commenting. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have Mr. Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly, we're going to talk about civics and culture. I've had a few discussions so far with Professor Rosalie Hamilton, Jeanette Calder, and a few other persons talking about civics. And leadership, and it's something which is very important, something which is very crucial that is needed. So I'm going to have that discussion tomorrow night with Mr. Tony Kelly, a diabetes expert, and we're going to look at culture and culture and civics. Very important, very important. So thank you so much for those who have joined on TikTok. Thank you very much. Those who have joined on LinkedIn, I didn't go on Instagram tonight. Those who have joined on Facebook, and those who have joined also on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe and to share, and it is much appreciated. And thank you very much. And let us, as I say, teamwork make the dream work. Okay. Thank you very much, and good night. Thank you.